Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Convery, the podcast where we sit down with some of the most fascinating minds from various fields for a chat over a cup of coffee. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to our guest, Seb Benzecry. Seb is a PhD candidate at the University of Cambridge, where he focuses on film and screen studies. He's also the president of the Cambridge University Boat Club for 2023-2024, leading the team to victory in the Gemini Boat Race 2024 and winning the Aberdeen Quaich Trophy. Beyond his academic and athletic achievements, Seb brings a wealth of experience in content writing and tutoring. He has worked as a content writer for Modus Workplace, creating original articles on workspace, culture, and office spaces, as well as contributing to social media marketing. His experience in rowing extends to coaching roles at several prestigious institutions, including the Pembroke College Boat Club and the Lees School. Seb's journey began at Princeton University, where he earned his BA in English and honed his skills as a creative director for an on-campus broadcast TV show. He then pursued his MPhil at the University of Cambridge, where he continued to excel. In today's episode, we'll dive into Seb's academic pursuits, his passion for rowing, and how he balances his roles in both academia and athletics. We also will discuss thoughts on his future film and the screen studies he's experienced in content creation and much more. So grab your cup of coffee or whatever your drink of preference is, sit back, enjoy this enlightening conversation with Seb. And Seb, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Brian. Happy to be here.
So excited for you to be here. And again, congratulations on your win recently. It was so wonderful to see you hold that trophy up.
Thank you so much. Thank you
You're,
so much. Yeah, it was
you're
a
welcome.
cool moment.
I can't even imagine. Um, to get us going, I wanted to maybe go through a few rapid fire questions. So what are your pronouns?
He, him.
He, him. Okay, perfect. And what do you consider your superpower?
Um, like, what would my favorite superpower be if I could have one? Because I think I was thinking about this, and I'm pretty sure flying would be the ultimate. That would be pretty cool.
Flying like
Um,
on your own.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like Superman flying.
Yeah.
That would be good. That would be
Yeah.
nice.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
All you need is a cape, but I don't know if I'd try it off a big building.
Fair enough.
Um, how about favorite smell?
Um, I think Christmas trees, maybe. The smell of like pine Christmas tree that kind of makes me think of Christmas at home, sort of lovely nostalgic kind of smell for me.
Love that. Love that. Brings on a lot of memories and thoughts for sure.
Yeah,
Um, talking about compliments, what is the best compliment you've ever received?
that's a tricky question actually. I think honestly, this year at the end of the boat race, at the end on the finish line, one of the guys came up to me and was just like, and I mean, take this with a pinch of salt because we were all very, very happy at the time. But he was like, "This was you, right? This was your win. You were the president. You did this." And I was kind of like, and obviously it wasn't just me at all, but the fact that he thought that I'd had such a big hand in sort of developing the culture of the club towards the win, I think it was really moving for me. Actually, I was really like taken aback,
Wow.
and yeah, I think that was probably it.
That's
Um,
special. It shows your leadership too. I mean, honestly, that's part of that compliment for sure.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it was pretty nice.
That is nice. That is nice. So, okay, I'm curious about this one because we all have like guilty pleasures or go-to snacks. What's your favorite thing to snack on?
Mm, I mean, just chips. I think something pretty boring. We
Chips?
have in the UK, we've got some really good chip brands. You know,
Ah,
it,
like what kinds?
people
I'm
don't.
curious.
Well, I don't know. Like, there's just a lot of exotic flavorings of chips in the UK. I think people think that the UK sort of snack scene isn't that good, but actually, if you do a bit of a deep dive into it, we got some winners. We got some
Okay.
winners.
Okay. I'll have to come over there and have some chips. Try it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, honestly.
Awesome. Thinking about school, what has been your favorite subject in school?
Um, well, when I was a kid, I used to love doing theater and drama,
Yep.
and when I started rowing, I kind of couldn't put as much time into it. as I had before, but my school offered like a theatre studies class. So that sort of became my favorite subject in my later years. When I wasn't sort of acting in my spare time, I could sort of do it as an academic subject at school. So that was pretty cool.
That's very
Um,
cool. That's very cool.
yeah,
I want to hear more about that acting as we get into your story here.
definitely.
We all had a first job. Thinking back, what was your first job?
Um, I think it was actually doing some like freelance article writing for a rowing magazine. When I
Okay.
was when I was a teenager, I started. There's like a website in the UK that wrote about junior rowing,
Okay.
like high school rowing, and I started writing for that. And through that, this rowing magazine got in touch with me, and then I started doing some articles for them, which was really, really cool. And actually now that same magazine is in charge of producing a lot of the media for the boat race. So I'm kind of
Serious?
working with them again. Yeah, like 10 plus years down the line. So that was kind of cool.
That's
Um,
serendipitous. That's a
yeah,
cool.
yeah, no, definitely,
That's
definitely. Yeah, I think that was probably my first,
that's
yeah, sort of
cool.
3 months job.
Creative
Yeah.
writing. Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome.
Uh,
One last rapid fire, and then we'll jump right into your story. I can't wait to hear more about things. If you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would you pick?
it's a very, very hard question that. um, uh, I don't know. I think maybe loyal. I feel like I'm very sort of loyal to the people that I care about and to the places that I care about as well. And certainly in terms of teams, I feel like every time I've been on a team, I've really given as much of myself as I could. Um, and just through being on some really cool teams, I've made some incredible friends, and I feel like I'm really loyal to them as well. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's a great strength to have, and we need more subs in the world for sure. That's a good one. All right, let's jump back. So back to the moment where you lifted up that trophy after the win of the Gemini Boat Race. Like, what was going through your mind, and how did you feel?
Um, well, I mean, it's there's a huge amount of kind of emotion caught up in that. And I guess there are a few sort of prevailing things that stood out for me. The first is probably primarily relief, um, because the boat race season is 7 months from when we arrive for the preseason to the actual race itself, and it is 7 months preparing for one thing, and it's like either you win and you completed the mission, or you lose and you'll never have completed the mission, right? So it's very much like that you only care about one thing for 7 months.
Gotcha.
And so as you get closer and closer to the race, there's kind of this overwhelming pressure that builds up where you're like, okay, we're actually going to have to try and do this thing. And you kind of have to confront the possibility that you lose, and it's kind of, in some ways it was kind of all for naught, although obviously it's never all for naught, and every season, win or lose, is an incredible experience. But ultimately, you want to win, and
Yeah.
winning is a huge thing. So when we did win, I mean, it is this overwhelming relief, that you kind of managed to do the job. It's obviously ecstatic. I mean, it's just the most incredible feeling, like, to win and in front of so many people as well. Rowing is not a huge public sort of facing sport, right?
Yeah.
It's a very niche thing. And I've rowed for almost 15 years, both in the UK and in the US as well. And there's a great rowing culture in the US. And there are races like Head of the Charles, which attracts a huge number of spectators and everything. But in terms of like one event, one day, attracting hundreds of thousands of people to the bank and watched by millions of people on TV, um, the boat race is the only thing that's like that. So it is just this unbelievable thing to be a part of for us, because it's just you don't ever experience anything close to that, when you're a rower doing anything else. And
Yeah.
obviously there's a huge amount of sort of media stuff as well. So you kind of feel like you're a celebrity for a day, which is really, really fun. You're being interviewed by the, TV, and it's just, yeah, it's just this crazy, crazy thing. And then obviously if and when you win, and then you can stand up and on the podium and hold up the trophy, it's like this unbelievable sort of capstone to that whole experience.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so yeah, and I guess the last thing is that it was kind of not bittersweet for me, but I was also very aware of the fact that like that was kind of going to be it for my whole sort of rowing career. And I think like I've been feeling quite somber,
Hmm.
I think, over the course of the week, because I learned to row on that stretch of river that the boat race is on. So my high school, St. Paul's, is in Hammersmith, and the boathouse is about halfway down the racing course for the boat race. So the first strokes I ever took back in 2010, 2009, 2010, were right on the race course for the boat race, right? So that was where I
Wow.
really started the whole journey, and I rode there for a good 5, 6 years, and then I went to the States, and then came back to Cambridge, and then obviously have now raced on that for the boat race a few times. And so, like, to end my sort of, you know, not professional rowing career, but like my kind of full-time athletic career, I guess, or like serious athletic career, I would say. There doing the boat race, winning the boat race, it was really just a crazy sort of mix of emotions, and there was definitely some kind of sadness there in the fact that like I will have to now kind of let this thing go that's been such a big part of my life for so long. But
Yeah.
but yeah,
No.
mostly it's just really cool.
Yeah, no. And wow, the whole thing back to where you started and then
Yeah,
the end of it all in the same place. That's really incredible. It sounds like, I guess when we get into your film studies and things, I think there's a book or a film in there, I think, given what you just said. Maybe it's about you.
yeah.
Maybe talk about
I
it.
mean,
It's
I don't know
it,
if people would be interested to read it, but I could definitely. There's enough there that I could write about, I'm sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, all of us saw the boys in the boat. There's room for
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Right?
no, for sure. That's true. That's true.
So obviously balancing all this and I don't think people realize the 7 months that goes into it and everything that goes beyond just that. But how do you balance your leadership role with your academic studies all happening at the same time?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's so the the president role is a pretty involved sort of thing, and it's not. I wasn't really expecting it to be as involved as it was, or as it is, um, when I sort of ran for president, because I've been doing. This was my fourth year at Cambridge, so I've been just rowing on the team and in the boat race since 2020 21.
Okay.
Um, and it's always like a pretty full on thing. So the kind of balancing just being on the team and sort of getting up every morning, doing 2 sessions in the morning, starting at like 5:30 a.m. and then sort of coming back and trying to work. That's always been quite a difficult balancing act. But then the president role on top of that is quite a lot more stuff. I think I was fortunate in that, my PhD is involved, but it's very much something that I can take at my own pace. So it's not like I'm having to go to class, every day at 9 a.m. and like I'm trying to balance training around that. It's very much like I'm just writing this big block of text over, a few years, and I'll meet with my supervisor and stuff. But it's nothing like what I was trying to do in undergrad or I guess doing my master's, where it's like you're actually doing a lot of you have a lot of contact hours and you're going to class a lot and you're writing a lot of sort of essays and stuff. The PhD is just not really like that. So for me, it's not actually been too bad. But there are people on the team who've been president who are like doing undergraduate engineering degrees, and
Yeah.
for them, I look at them and I'm like, I have no idea how you managed to make that work. And it's really really impressive actually to see what people are able to do, because Cambridge, um so I did my undergrad at Princeton,
Yep.
and the US university system is very sort of accommodating for athletics. There's just generally quite a great healthy sports culture at US
Okay.
institutions. They want to see people do extracurricular stuff. They want to see people do athletics. They want to see people, they want a good sports program. They want good varsity teams. So at Princeton, there was time every day set aside for students to do sports, basically, or whatever they wanted to do. And that was kind of in the afternoon. Whereas at Cambridge, it is very much like, you are here as a student, the academics come first, which I think is fair. But it does mean that we have to train around that. And it means we just have to go really early in the morning the whole time, which really is, it's difficult. And for undergraduates who have 9 a.m. classes, it's a really big sort of balancing
Yeah.
act.
Big time big time management skills and
Yeah,
balancing for
absolutely.
sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thoughts on there's a lot of young people that listen to this podcast, a lot of student athletes, a lot of people just pursuing their dreams. Any thoughts or advice you'd give to a young student athlete on how to think about sports and studies, or any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of people do kind of put the two things at, opposite ends of a kind of spectrum, or like they put them in conflict with each other sometimes. I think, you have your academic life and you have your sports life, and you have to try and like fit these two things together as if they're opposing each other.
Yeah.
But for me, I think actually like the two things can become quite intertwined in a really nice way. And like certainly in terms of allowing either of them to teach you the kind of time management skills that makes the whole picture easier to fit together, is a big one. And I think like if I hadn't started rowing seriously, I wouldn't have become a good student in school, right? Because the
Interesting.
rowing basically forced me to much more diligently look at how I was structuring my day. And this was back in high school, how I was structuring my day, how I was structuring my time. And it kind of just forces you to engage, and yeah, become a better sort of student through time management and stuff. So I think, allowing yourself to develop, to make these things work, and kind of bringing them together, I think can be quite a powerful thing.
In-
Um, yeah,
Interesting perspective. Yeah, because you're right. A lot of people think of them as dueling or separate things, but there's so much transferable skills between the two as
yeah,
well to make you, like you just
yeah,
articulated,
exactly.
right? You can learn new skills from the sports that you can apply in your academia life and vice versa. So
Yeah, for
very
sure.
cool. Very cool. So what got you like originally interested in rowing, and what made you pursue it so passionately?
Um, I think well, so I used to play rugby in school. It's kind of the big thing for British kids. It's well, football firstly, and then probably rugby as well. Um, and I really enjoyed rugby, but I'm not the best sort of ball sports kind of guy. My hand-eye coordination maybe isn't so great. So that kind of was fun. And then I got injured playing rugby. And I was kind of like, I think my mum was kind of like, you should find something else. Do something else. I broke my collarbone, I think,
Oh wow.
and yeah, so I was looking for something else, and my school has a boathouse right on the river. So the school sits on the river, and then there's the boathouse on campus, I guess, which was really cool and it's quite rare actually for a high school. Um, and so I just sort of thought, well, that looks like quite a fun novelty. So I'll give that a try. And I think my dad had done a little bit of rowing back in the day, and he was always like, "Oh, you're tall. You should try rowing." Um, so yeah, so I gave it a try, and it really it has this sort of remarkable ability to just hook you in rowing. It's maybe because it's so unlike so unlike anything else, but it's kind of simple. There's a kind of beautiful simplicity to it. You're just doing the same thing and over again, but you're kind of doing it with a bunch of guys, and you're kind of honing it, and you're out on the river, and it's kind of this, you're in quite a narrow boat, and you're working to balance it, and then when you get
Yeah.
it going, it's really, it just glides, and and it can be a really addictive feeling once you start figuring it out. So yeah, I guess I was fairly successful with it, just because I was pretty big for my age. I was kind of big and strong, and that kind of helps you sort of jumpstart the whole thing because you're pulling good scores on the rowing machine. And you kind of feel like, I guess I felt like, okay, this is my sport. This is what I can really do. After a while, and yeah, I just sort of the passion for it just grew and grew and grew. And yeah, it was, yeah, a good decision, I think, to go from the rugby pitch to the boathouse.
It
Um,
and
yeah,
it's interesting too, like you said, your high school had a boathouse, which is, I think, extremely rare because even I told you
mm,
I rode back in New York and
yeah, yeah,
we borrowed a boathouse from a college, university, so we could store our boats there, right? But
right, right,
I think it's such a, like you said, it's such a unique sport, how the spectators, it's a full body workout for sure. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
incredible every muscle that gets used. Um, I just think it's interesting. I wish more places offered rowing to young people because
yeah.
it is a mind and body thing, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's really the ultimate. It's the ultimate sport in a way
yeah,
because yeah, as you say, it's a full body workout. You're really engaging everything, but it's also an incredibly mentally stimulating thing, and you're constantly balancing this need, I guess, to not overthink
yeah,
the stroke and to just kind of relax into it, and just like not allow thoughts to override your ability to just row technically with everyone else. But it's also like it's so difficult, and in a racing situation it's so difficult, and you have all these kind of negative thoughts coming in. You've got to try and learn to push yourself
yeah.
to a place where you don't want to go a lot of the time, and it's just it's a crazy thing, really. It's such an exciting sort of sport to be a part of, and I feel like so much of that you just don't really get a sense of, unless you've actually done it, unless you've sort of been in a boat and been in a race.
Yeah.
um so yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's nothing like it. So let's talk about your studies. So I know you're currently a PhD student, University of Cambridge, focusing on film and screen studies. Um,
Yeah.
what's inspired you to pursue this field? And how do you see it work contributing to your broader landscape of film and media as you go forward?
Yeah, so in my undergrad I majored in English and did a minor in visual arts. So I was basically I ended up writing my sort of senior thesis on film. I wrote about the films of the Coen brothers, um,
Okay.
which was quite fun. And then I was also like making like short films on the side, for my minor. So I've kind of always like really enjoyed film, and sort of both the kind of practical filmmaking side of it and also like the study of film. Um, and then I was looking at sort of masters at I knew I wanted to come to Cambridge. I knew I wanted to keep studying, and I wanted to come and do the rowing as well, and to try and do the boat race. And I didn't expect there to be a film studies master's program, but there was, and so that was kind of like immediately like, oh, brilliant! I'll apply for that. And actually, Oxford offer one as well, in film aesthetics. So it's cool to see that two of the best
Yeah.
universities in the UK offer film studies, which is really pretty much every time I tell anyone here that I'm studying film studies, they're like, "Oh, what, Cambridge does film studies? Like that's crazy." Yeah, there's a whole department. It's
There you
cool.
go.
There's actually a lot of people who do it, and the professors are great, and it's fantastic. But but yeah, so I came back to the UK. started doing my master's and just really, really loved it. Sort of loved getting more into the kind of specifics of film studies and looking more at film theory and yeah, just and that was during the COVID year. So that
Okay.
was 2020 to 2021. So we
Yeah.
spent a lot of the year um, sort of locked down, which was tough. So we were training for the boat race basically at home. So I was living with a few of the other guys on the team,
Oh,
and
wow.
we spent the majority of the year just sitting in our house. We had some rowing machines in the garden, and I would just do the Zoom class thing, and then we go outside and sit on the rowing machine for a few hours and eat dinner, and that was kind of it. That was the whole sort of life, and it was great, and the guys were wonderful. But I knew that I I wanted more, I guess, from my Cambridge
Yeah.
experience, and I was really loving the degree, and I sort of was encouraged, I guess, to think more about the PhD, doing the PhD by my supervisor, and it just kind of made sense. I mean, like, to be able to have been here for another 3 years, to keep rowing and to keep working in a really cool department, and doing my research has just been such a fantastic thing, and I'm really glad that I decided to apply for the PhD, because yeah, it's just been fantastic.
That's amazing. I have to ask you because studying film and looking at it and all the things you're involved in, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have a favorite film because of maybe not just the actors and the story, but also the cinematography and things that kind of come together? I'm assuming there might be. Is there a film that
Mm,
stands out to you, or is there
yeah,
one that?
I mean, my favorite film is No Country for Old Men. I
Okay.
think it's just, yeah, I mean, for everything really.
Yeah.
Um, but when I watch movies, I tend not to try and like look at
Critique.
it. Yeah, kind of. I don't want to like sort of look at it through a film studies lens. Though I guess if in the same way that if you're doing an English literature degree, you don't read every book,
Right.
sort of analyzing it from that perspective of like English literature. You know what I mean? It's just kind of the beauty of a great movie is you just get absorbed in it, and it's immersive, and it resonates with you on some emotional level, and I think if you I've just been wary of like not sitting and watching a movie and being like, which film
Yeah.
theory can I apply to this scene? Like, oh, what would Hegel have said about this, or like how has this been influenced by Russian montage, Soviet montage theories? It's just kind of like it kind of takes you out of it, I guess.
Yeah, you got to
So
enjoy what you're seeing
yeah,
too, right?
yeah,
And for
for sure.
respect that angle too
Yeah,
for the entertainment side of it.
yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's interesting because I think a lot of people in the film studies department don't really like watching movies that much, um, which is kind of an interesting place to be, because I feel like watching movies is pretty universally like just a great thing. Like movies
Yeah.
are like the most accessible kind of art form, I guess. And so yeah, I think to get to a point where you're studying it, and because you're studying it, you don't really enjoy the act of watching a film anymore. Like that's kind of sad. So I don't ever really want
No, you don't
to
want to
get like that.
be like that. I have to tell you though, we
Yeah.
just recently watched Ripley on
Oh
Netflix,
yeah.
all filmed
Yeah.
in black and white, and the photography and the cinematography was breathtaking. Like
Yeah.
I just fell right into it. I think that's another thing about how these movies can just the escapism, right? Like
Yeah.
into the
Absolutely.
story, and if it's
Absolutely.
really done well, if you haven't seen that yet, it is a good one, I will say. I
My
thought
my
I
my parents have been telling me to watch it. Yeah.
okay, I want to
Um.
hear what once you watch it, we have to connect and see what you think because it is a thriller, right? But it's
Yeah.
incredible the way it was all done. Let's talk a little bit about competitiveness, competition. A lot of the young people listening to this podcast, are trying to get ahead, and there's always that added pressure, if you will, whether it's in school or sports or this or that, about the competitive nature of life. Um,
Mm.
are there any techniques you found in your, going through like things to kind of maybe help you get through some of those things? from an overall sort of strategy perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I've had any kind of specific techniques. I think, I mean, rowing particularly is such a competitive environment. It's you spend the whole season, every season, basically, not only being in competition with, the boats that you have to race. And obviously for us at Cambridge, that's very much like we spend the whole season being like, we've got to race Oxford and beat Oxford, and that kind of competitiveness sort of seeps into everything that we do.
Yeah.
You have to train with that goal. Um, but also you are in competition with your team to a large degree, right? Every session you are cognizant of the fact that if you want to be in the boat that you want to be in, you have to be better, you have to be faster than the guys around you, and that can be massively pressured and can be really difficult as well, because you're very close to your team, um, and you don't want to be put in situations where you have to basically race your best friend for a seat in the boat. And that's happened to me pretty much every year I've been in the sport.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
yeah, it's really hard. But I think, for me over the years, I've just become a lot better at reframing that aspect of selection as, or at least trying to reframe it as something positive, and something that drives me on, and something that also drives the standard of the team on, so that we can be the best sort of version of ourselves when it actually comes to the race. So it's, yeah, I think like accepting the reality of the toughness of it,
Yeah,
but also like trying to think of it as something that is ultimately a positive thing. And then I guess just like leaning on your teammates for support, and understanding that even if you're in a very sort of tough selection battle with someone, they're still your friend, and they still care about you. And I think not like isolating yourself during those periods of intense competition, not becoming insular,
sure. Yeah,
um, and making sure that you stay, a part of things, because ultimately the biggest support network that you have is your team, and that's really how you get through the toughest times in the sport. You don't get through it by sort of sitting in your dark bedroom by yourself and like being like, I can't deal with this. I need to, I need to beat this guy. I need to win this thing. It's like you just, the team is everything really.
yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's definitely helped me
Awesome
over the years.
advice. Yeah, great advice. Thank you. Thinking about that, support, mentors, coaches, things like that in your career and experiences. Um, any specific, yeah, I mean, you don't have to name them if you don't want to, but any specific characteristics or things that you seeked in looking for a mentor and coach that others may be thinking about as far as they're seeking that out.
Yeah. Well, I think the best coaches that I've had, it probably, well, actually, so the coach that we have at Cambridge, is a really phenomenal coach, and he is quite similar in his approach to the coach that I had in high school as well.
Hmm,
They're quite similar people, just in terms of who they are, and their sort of style of coaching is quite similar as well. I think what makes them so good and so successful, and they have both been very, very successful, is the fact that ultimately they are very down to earth people,
hmm.
that you can sort of come to with anything, and they will just treat you like a person. And I think that was pretty huge for us in school, because I mean, a lot of the time when you're in school, you are kind of treated like a kid, and there's a kind of didactic thing going
Yeah,
on from a lot of your mentors and your teachers and everything. But our coach in school was very much like, he was not one of us necessarily, but he very much treated us like just people, and we are all just people, and he was just a person, and we were all kind of just embarking on this thing together, and we are just going to try and make it as good as we possibly could be. And and it's kind of the same at Cambridge. And I've had other coaches over the years who kind of are a bit like drill sergeants. It's
Yeah.
and that can be really good if you have a
Yeah.
huge team. That can be very effective. But when you're building an eight, and when you're kind of trying to, particularly if you're trying to do something that's more than the sum of your parts, when you're trying to build something um, that is more than its constituent elements, you kind of need someone who yeah is kind of in it with you in a sense. Um, and yeah, so my current coach and my coach in high school were just really, really down to earth, good people. And obviously were very good at making boats go well, good technical coaches. But I think like my barometer is like I would want to be friends with them and go and get a drink with them for the rest
Yeah.
of my life. Like they're just great people. And yeah, that's kind of what stands out to me, I guess.
Yeah, you nailed,
Yeah.
no, I think you nailed it. I think, and especially what I hear coming through is the humanity side of these individuals, right? Being human, just treating someone with the respect and conversations. And I think that's goes such a long way. And sometimes, like you said, sometimes people approach these things like mentor, mentee, I will now teach you this, and like
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi or whatever. But it's like it works both ways. And I think people that go into these mutually beneficial mentorships
Yeah.
end up having so much more of a fruitful experience where it extends into friendship and other things. And I try to coach students all the time on listening to this podcast too. It's like don't go into it looking for someone that's going to tell you the way to go and what to do based on their life and career. It's about picking up different pieces of thought and advice. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, thank you for that. I'm really important about the human side of connecting with that person, because like you having drill sergeants, I've also in business been assigned some mentors that this isn't going to work right away. I could tell,
Right.
right? It's like, here's your
Right. Right.
homework for the night. I'm like, homework? How are we doing homework and mentorship? No, that's not how it's going to go. You'd have enough
Yeah.
homework. But anyways, like thank you for sharing that too. What about outside of rowing, academics? What do you enjoy? What do you like doing?
Um, well, so as I said before, sort of theater and acting was really
Ah,
my big thing before I started rowing. And like if I hadn't got into rowing, I think I probably would have lent much more into that. And
there's still
it's
time.
something that,
There's still
yeah,
time.
yeah, no, no, no. I mean, well, now that rowing is kind of done, I definitely want to sort of look at that again and yeah, maybe while I'm finishing my PhD, because I probably won't finish until the new year. Maybe look at doing some theatre stuff in Cambridge,
Very
because there's a
cool.
really great theatre scene here, really really good theatre scene. But yeah, that was kind of my big passion, and absolutely loved being on stage. Um, and yeah, I'm sad that I wasn't able to do a lot of that, but as I said, like through doing theater studies and through doing film stuff as well, that's been really cool, to sort of keep looking at that sort of life and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of time to do a new gig and new idea, right? It's never, I don't think it's ever too late. I think it's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. Um,
Yeah.
Thinking back, younger self, um, I don't know, whether it's seventh grade, whatever you want to think back to, but what
Mm.
piece of advice would it be that you would give yourself back then?
Um, I guess yeah, it's the tricky question. I think probably I just encourage myself to be resilient,
Hmm.
and as I said before, to like make sure that during difficult times you don't become insular and you don't sort of, I guess a quite natural instinct is
Yeah.
to kind of shy away from things when you're going through stuff. You kind of want to, I mean, I guess it's different for different people, but certainly for me, like my instinct was to try and sort of deal with stuff by myself, or not
Yeah.
deal with stuff, but do it by myself. You know what I mean? rather than lean on friends, on family, or whatever for support. And I think, yeah, definitely in sports, you're always going to have peaks and troughs, right?
Yeah,
And that could be a full career spanning thing, but it also within every season you have peaks and troughs. And when I was a younger athlete, um, I wasn't familiar with that. I didn't really understand that it's kind of quite a normal thing. You're not just going to be like doing great the whole time, just like you can't keep sort of improving all
it's
the way
true.
and just keep going. It doesn't really work like that. You have times where you're kind of on top of the world and you're doing great, and you have times where you're not, and things can change really really quickly, and you can find yourself in a kind of much more negative situation, I guess, just really quickly, and it can kind of take you by surprise and catch you off guard. And yeah, I think when you have those times and where you're sort of confronted by those moments, just making sure that you understand that you can lean on so many people for
Absolutely.
support.
Hmm.
It there is so much there for you, so many people who love and care about you. And yeah, I mean it's just it's fighting that impulse to want to sort of deal with it by yourself and figure it out by yourself, because you just don't have to, and it's much easier when you sort of share the burden, I guess, somewhat,
Yeah, I
to
think
get
it,
through that time.
thank you for sharing that and going there. I think, especially, I think if I can be so bold, I think it's also difficult. A lot of men go through different challenges in different times, and it's not always, whether it's intergenerational or whatever, there's different things where you sometimes don't feel like you have a voice to talk about it, or you'll be weak if you do, or, those things. And I think more and more that's evolving, thankfully, because, we know there's so many things that, like you said, it's not going to always be like this. You're not going to always be flying high
Yeah,
on everything. And when it goes down or something goes down, it does get better, but it's hard sometimes to see that. And leaning on people, like you said, is super important. And recognizing, those friends that you can talk to, because once you open that up a little bit, you find out that other people are going through things too. Maybe not the exact same
exactly.
thing, but then once you start
Yeah,
to talk, you realize, like, and I found my friendships with guys that have gone really deep because of being vulnerable to that, I think helps as well,
yeah,
you
no, for
know?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking about that. I think it's super important. Let's see. Oh my gosh, we're getting close to the end. I can't believe it. I'm like really enjoying this conversation. Is there anything I haven't asked you, or something that you wanted to impart on the listeners, or anything that comes to mind before we consider like closing this out for the day? But yeah, is there anything you wanted to mention?
No, no, I mean, I feel like we covered a lot of stuff. I think just if I could just plug my sport, I guess, for a second, like, if anyone, I mean, obviously it is quite niche, so I'm sure a lot of people haven't even considered rowing as a possibility for something that you could do, but like it is a pretty amazing thing. It is, quite unlike anything else, really. It's, the feeling of being out on a boat, working together, as I said before, with your teammates. It's just an amazing feeling. So I would really encourage anyone who hasn't tried rowing or thought about it to, like, give it a try, because it can become like the biggest thing in your life, as it did for me, quite quickly before you even know it. So it's yeah,
Yeah,
no,
a
it's a
hundred
great thing.
percent, 100%.
Yeah.
And from one rower to a better rower than me, it's really, I get it. And I think thanks for plugging it, because I think more people should consider the sport, watching it, getting involved in it, coaching it, whatever the case may be. But Seb, it's been super incredible to have you on here. I'm super honored to have you share your story with the listeners and give some insights into a little bit more about yourself. And who knows, maybe we'll see you on that London stage soon. I can't wait to see that happen too. So thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, for our listeners, if you liked what you heard today, Please just share this podcast with your network on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at Coffee with Convery. And this has been Coffee with Convery. And until next time, please stay well.